Did you get the pop-up saying you were
Yep.
being recorded?
Yep.
Excellent. All right, so it's 4 o'clock. We'll get started and hopefully some more folks will be able to join us. So hello and welcome to an OHASSTA spring webinar. My name is Rachel Collishaw. I'm the president of OHASSTA. My colleague Vanessa Cadell is here. She's going to be helping from the Rainbow District School Board in Sudbury, and we're going to get started. So a couple things before we start, and we're here with our friend Megha, who's going to talk about assessment. So who we are, we're the Ontario History and Social Science Teachers Association. We've been serving our members since 1978. We'd like to thank the Ontario Teachers Federation for this Zoom platform to help us keep connected. We are a volunteer organization of practicing teachers. And we have a brand new logo that just launched over the weekend. So please enjoy our new logo and look for it coming on your computer screen. I'd like to give a brief land acknowledgement. So I live in Ottawa, which is the traditional unsurrendered and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. And I am so grateful to live here. I was just biking across the beautiful Ottawa River, or the Kitchissippi, with the very, very big river. And just across the river from me is this beautiful painting that I think is a really excellent reminder to us that history is created and shaped in many different ways across many different cultures, and particularly in light of truth and reconciliation, we all need to have that hope of mutual respect going forward. And I think that sets us in a good direction today for this discussion. If you haven't used Zoom in a while, there's you can mute yourself. You're all muted, which is great. There's a chat. And so if you can't see these controls, they'll be at the bottom of your screen or at the top of your screen, depending. So please participate in the chat. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Megha, who is a secondary global studies educator and global studies curriculum head with the Peel District School Board. And she's going to talk to us about disrupting the power in assessment. And we've got this cool hashtag, assessment of power move, that I'm going to let her tell you a little bit more about.
Hey everyone, hey folks. So I'm just going to start to minimize this, and Rachel, I believe, is going to add the slide deck into the chat, so everyone's got access to the slide deck. And I'm just going to share my screen here, if I could figure out how to do that. All right.
That green button at the bottom. Yep. Perfect.
Does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Perfect.
Good. Okay. If anything goes wrong, let me know. I'm just.
Absolutely.
I don't think I'm like the most Zoom literate. I use Teams a lot, so I'm just. I'll do my best. All right. So disrupting the power in assessment. We're going to be talking about assessment today. Love assessment. And just kind of looking at power structures in assessment. There is a hashtag that goes along with our presentation, with this webinar. Feel free to make use of the hashtag. Tweet as you during this session. Tweet as much as you like, just to have that conversation continue on Twitter and online, and get that discussion going and continuing. To begin, so Rachel did introduce me. I am a global studies teacher with the Peel District School Board. So I more recently have been teaching more social science courses, but my department's a mix of business and social science and geography and history. So we've got a wide span of different courses. If you ever want to contact me, there's my email, megha.rog@plsb.com. Feel free to send an email about anything I'm sharing with you today. I've got resources that I will be sharing out. If any questions, or if I said something that confused you, or if you want more information, feel free to send an email. I'm pretty good with email. I send emails back all the time pretty quick. And feel free to follow. I follow back as well. Sometimes I say good things, sometimes I'm not so good things. So follow at your own risk, I feel. All right, so just to begin, just to get a vibe of where everyone is at, there's about 4 prompts here. If you can, maybe reflect on where you're at right now, how you're feeling, where your mindset's at. I was sharing earlier with Rachel, my day's been super crazy. So many things have changed within the last 2.5 hours. So my mind's everywhere. So there's images there. Feel free to share in the chat. where we're at right now with where we are with their mental health. I'll give you a minute to do that.
I only put 4 because I just came in from a bike ride and it's so beautiful and sunny here.
Oh, we got a 3 and a 4. Awesome. Thanks, folks. I'll share, like I think I'm like between a 1 and a 2 and maybe a 3 right now. Just all kinds of things are going on. My mind's just full of other things that had happened. So, oh, hey, Hema. Oh, I know Hema. Hema's here. A 1. So it's nice to know where folks are at right now. And again, with this learning, feel free to, take this in at your own pace. I do speak fast. Sometimes I get a little anxious and nervous. If there's something I said that you weren't clear on, feel free to throw it into the chat. Maybe Rachel could just stop me and, share what's being said in the chat. But yeah, so I again, take this in as we go through at your own pace. Feel free as though, if you need to maybe take a break, feel free to take a break. I will not be offended at all. Oh, perfect. Here are the learning goals for a webinar. So by the end of this webinar, we will know where power structures are held in the classroom. Even in our school or even the system itself, we could think beyond our classroom if we want to. We can understand that assessment can be used to uphold power structures and be able to disrupt power structures in assessment by providing students ownership and agency with our assessment practices. Power structures. Before we begin, we're going to do a little activity. I would like for everyone to kind of reflect on their day or any moment in their classroom or their practices, and really think about kind of your daily plans, your schedule, your agenda, your lesson today, your lesson yesterday, your instruction, what you did in the classroom, what you didn't do in the classroom, assessment practices, your classroom culture, climate. Take a minute and reflect, and if you can. If you could share kind of all the decisions that you as an educator, as a teacher, made for your class today. I do have a little Menti here, and you just have to put whatever the word is. You hit submit. So if I do seating plan, hit submit, and you could keep hitting as many as you like. I also in the slide deck have the results, so we can kind of see what folks are, what decisions they've been making in the classroom. So I'll give you maybe about a few minutes to do that right now. Does that work, Rachel? The link?
Yep, I put the link in the chat as well, so hopefully people can start submitting some answers.
Perfect.
Oh, there they. I'm seeing them now. So many decisions. Oh, it's OSSLT. Hooray. Oh gosh, book ordering.
Maybe we'll do like maybe another 30 seconds or so. Everything okay in the chat?
Yeah, no, chat's very quiet at the moment.
Perfect.
They're busy thinking back on all book orderings for the library, so it is fun. I did get to order books for our history and social science classrooms a few times too, which was also fun.
Yeah, so I'll do maybe one last refresh and then we'll take a look at what we have. All right, so feel free to keep adding if you kind of think of more decisions that you've made or you see teachers make in the classroom. But we make a whole lot of decisions. Mental health priority, student readiness. It's interesting that we make decisions on student readiness. How to engage, seating plan, lesson topics, when to call home. That's a really interesting one. We decide when to call home, start and end times, background knowledge, book ordering. The text that we're going to be using. So as educators, we have a lot of power in what happens in our classroom, what happens to our students, what doesn't happen to our students. We make a lot of decisions in our classroom, as we clearly can see. What we have in our classrooms, in our schools, in our system is what we call, so I'm just going to move this little bar that hovers, our culture of power. It's very much evident in our education system. All boards, I would say, they're based off hierarchies. There's always, you've got your learners, your teacher, your department heads, and secondary, vice principals, principals, supers, directors, and it goes on and on and on. And there's so many different roles. Lisa Delpit, who I absolutely love, and I've been reading a whole lot of everything she's ever done. But she identifies 5 aspects of powers that is evident in the classroom. So she fully says that issues of power are enacted in the classroom. It comes a lot from our positional power. So as teachers, as educators, by default, because of our title, we have power. The minute kids walk into the classroom, they know who's in charge. They know, it's interesting, like they kind of know what the expectations almost are before even walking in. Even now, I get kids who walk in and they make assumptions about what's going to be happening in the classroom, or they'll just ask, Miss, could I go to the bathroom, or could I do this or that? And they'll ask about every little thing. And oftentimes I'll say, well, I mean, you don't have to ask to go to the bathroom. Just put your name on the board so I know who's out, and you're allowed to leave, and come back at a reasonable time. But even the fact that I don't have a seating plan, it just throws the kids off all the time. Miss, where do I sit? Like, do I have to sit here every day? Could I sit in a different spot? But it's interesting that they'll come and they'll ask me about, just decisions that they very much can make. And these are kids in grade 12, grade 11, who are asking me to make decisions for them in our classroom. But I think a lot of that has to do with, what they've been taught and that positional power. They know that, the teacher's got a title, they're in charge, it's their classroom, just as how teachers know that, VPs kind of have their power and principals have their power and so on. So they very much, there is this issue of power within our system, in just a structure that exists. There are rules for engagement in this culture of power. There's codes to participate in this power. I think what, as students, as teachers, being in the system, we all engage in kind of this culture of power in some way, in one way or another. It creates a culture of power within schools, but the codes come from like how we speak, the expectations for how we dress, like dress codes, rules around that. What's considered to be like appropriate clothing versus not appropriate clothing, how we present ourselves to each other. All of those, we're kind of engaging with the power structures when we speak a certain way or present a certain way or dress a certain way. That's all a part of the code, regardless of, and we might not even notice that we're doing that. The culture of power definitely reflects those who are in power. So in most, well, I mean, I would say in my board, there are a lot of white teachers. And oftentimes the culture of power will reflect them and their lived identities and their backgrounds and their experiences, their lived experiences, and their intersected identities. It very much reflects who they are. And I think that students, again, they're aware of this and they try and fit into the system, so they will engage, because they're not a part of that dominant culture. So again, like whoever is in charge, your rules of engagement will reflect that person. If you choose not to engage in the culture of power that exists in the classroom, you will very much be told. So if a student goes and they sit somewhere where they're not supposed to be sitting, they'll be told to go sit in this other spot. Or, if a student has to go to the bathroom and they're told, nope, you can't go to the bathroom this period, or you can't go right now, or I'm taking this away from you or that away from you. They're being told explicitly what the rules of engagement are, like, here's how you should behave in this culture. And those with power are not aware of it, and those without are the most aware of it. So if you are in that positional power, you probably are oblivious to kind of the decisions that you're making and how they impact others, because you have that power. And those without power, they very much know that they don't have power. So when our students come into our classroom, they know that they don't have power in that classroom. And that's something that we need to start kind of questioning and thinking about as educators. Oops. If I move. So looking at assessment now, what is assessment? So this comes from Growing Success, this definition here. So according to Growing Success, the primary purpose of assessment evaluation is to improve student learning. We are told this all the time, every day, all day. This is what the purpose of assessment is. It's a pretty broad definition of assessment. It's not really centering teachers at all. The word student isn't there. I don't see the word educator in there or teacher in there at all. But it's a pretty broad, definition that it's all about the student. We're here to improve the student's learning experience. However, just based off my experiences really, and what I've seen, the reality of assessment is not that. The reality of assessment in schools is it's there to create sameness. So when we have consistent assessment practices between sections, between courses, within a department, we're trying to create sameness. And when you're creating sameness, you're trying to get all these kids to fit into this one specific expectation of what success looks like. Or grades, that's another way that is the reality of schools. We have to give a grade. Teachers are still grading. Teachers taking marks off of assignments still, like that's very much a reality. But is that improving student learning, or are we now working towards that grade? Assessment often reflects the teacher's own experience with assessment and the teacher's biases around assessment. I teach business studies as well, and oftentimes I'll hear business teachers say, well, we must do our assessment like this because when they go to university, when they do their business degree, or when I went to university and when I did my BCom, here's what assessment was like. And if they're going to do a BCom, this is what it has to be. But that very much centers the teacher in their assessment, in the assessment practice. The reality of assessment in schools is extrinsic. It's all about extrinsic motivation. Oftentimes students will be working towards that grade, towards that number. They want a 93, they want a 96, they want that specific number, or they want it, or an 88. But the reality is, like, assessment has become this extrinsic motivator. Like, I'm going to learn these things so I could do my assessment. But that really doesn't even align with that definition that Growing Success has. Assessment is very much used to stream and sort students. So if you get above a 70, you take the academic pathway. If you get less than 70, you're taking the applied pathway. And when you're streaming students, that totally defines what they can and can't do. In school, it defines what they can and can't do with their future and the, career paths they want to explore, places they want to go. It very much kind of defines who they will become almost. Competition assessment very much has become about competition. When students get their assessment back and they're comparing notes and grades and feedback, but this student got this and I got this, and why do they have this, and how do I get that number? That's what assessment has now become. It's become a way for students to compete with each other. I've seen it used to manage behavior. I don't know if anyone else has seen this, but I've seen teachers say, you know what, I'm going to give them a quiz tomorrow because they were awful in class today. That entirely is a power move. Or, this student's being terrible, I'm going to mark this a little bit harder. But they use it as a way to manage behavior. I think it stifles innovative practices. So if I want to do something cool in my classroom, but my assessment has to, follow all the other teachers, I might not be able to do that cool thing. And then it also upholds the status quo in the system that is not serving Black, Indigenous, Brown learners. It's very much about kind of it's become a way to kind of set this standard that we all must now need to follow, and the standards created by that educator in the front of the classroom. And that might not serve all students. And then conformity, the last one. Assessment very much works to try and create sameness through those consistent assessment practices and ensure that the students are meeting the same standards at the same time with the same expectations of the same way, regardless of who that individual is. It very much gets used as a power move in schools, opposed to just working to improve student learning. Am I okay to move on? Anything in the chat?
We've got mostly a lot of people agreeing with everything you're saying, Megha.
Oh no.
So yeah, there's a number of different comments. So that we're not preparing students for French degrees or history degrees or whatever. We're preparing students for real life opportunities with the discipline. Pop quizzes are punitive. In a lot of disciplines, testing does seem very punitive. And how we use content to teach skills and socialization. And then we're also not serving our LGBTQ+ students very well either.
Absolutely.
And Rob says, I'm typing furiously because everything you are saying is spot on, exclamation mark.
Oh no.
And yes, we are recording this, Rob. So everything is going to be posted later.
Awesome. That makes me a little nervous, but we'll continue. So we're gonna do some thinking. We're gonna try we're gonna dive into Del Pitt's aspects of power, or like the codes that create that culture of power. And we're going to, in a breakout room, we're going to identify how traditional assessment practices uphold that culture of power. So in a minute, everyone will be moved into a breakout room. I'll just take the amount of participants we have, and I'll split it into groups of 5. And what you'll do is, so individually, so once you are in your breakout room, you will read the assigned aspect of power. So I'll show you what it kind of looks like. If you click on this collaborative working doc, so this is for us, this is for you guys to take back and use however you like, share it with whoever you like. This is kind of your takeaway. You share with your department members, other teachers, your school if you wanted to. But we're going to look at, like, here's this traditional assessment practices, which is upholding power structures, and here's what you could do to disrupt that. So you'll have kind of an actionable take back with you. So you'll see that there's 5. There's going to be 5 different rooms. Everyone's going to be moving into a room. Each room is assigned a specific culture power. You will read Lisa Del Pitt's little blurb on it. So I do have in the story, I'm just going to click the speaker notes. Oops. Sorry, right here. This link will take you kind of to just to her breakdown here. You don't have to read all of this. It's super long. You can read it on your own time if you choose to. But if you scroll kind of partway through, right on page 3, this is where she kind of starts with her codes of power, and then she defines each one. So you'll see a definition for each one. It's just a little paragraph. So in your group, you'll individually read this, read your specific blurb, and then as a group, you will identify how assessment is used to uphold cultures of power, how changes can be made to disrupt the culture of power. And as a group, you'll then share back with us and you'll select a speaker. So on this doc is where you'll just kind of record that right here. So let's see, I'm just going to expand my box here if I can, so I can move folks.
Okay, we don't have anything in the other.
All right, so I'm just going to share my screen again so we could go back to our slide deck. So we'll take a moment and we'll kind of share what our discussions were in our breakout rooms. I'm just taking a look at the chart that we have. Oops, our chart. And it's super filled out, which is awesome. So feel free, to go through, share this back with folks at your school if you like, or whoever. So we'll take a minute. We'll just kind of go through. Maybe we'll start with group number 1. Does anyone from group number 1 want to share their examples of how traditional practices uphold the culture of power and things that can be modified to disrupt that?
I took some of the notes, but anyone else from our group, you're welcome to pop in.
I can do it if you want.
Thanks. So we looked at how power plays out in a number of different categories. We looked at it in the classroom through assessment itself, but we also looked at things like the influence of corporations, that is, like publishing companies, that teachers are quite reliant on when they develop their assessments. And often, they'll just take them like a cut and paste sort of model and use those. We also looked at the fact that in most cases, or I don't know if I'd say most cases, in the school I'm in for sure, that teachers are very prescriptive in their assessment practices. And my department because I'm kind of disruptive that way, but trying to break it down. But it's a school culture that's deeply entrenched around high performance and the idea that there's expectations you need to meet to go to university and be successful and get scholarships and everything. And it's just a constant struggle to try and disrupt that culture. So we talked about things like helping teachers to let go of those deeply entrenched cultural practices, which is really hard to do, of thinking about involving students in both designing assessments, but also evaluating them. I co-evaluate with my students, especially my senior students, because they need to know what's happening, right? This is important stuff for them. Their marks really matter. So it's a conversation process. It's not a here's your assignment and let's go. And then also, I really liked the idea that Rob said, is that one thing we could really change is, rather than looking at individual success as being kind of the goal of assessment, is collectivism, and thinking about how groups can work together and students can work together to achieve something for the common good. And what that might look like. I mean, I know we all do group work, but we're looking at, I think, something different and shifting the mentality of students around what success means for their assessments. And if I missed anything, folks, just pipe up.
Great job, Sarah.
Awesome, thank you. I do like the idea, like teacher, you have it written down there as well, like the idea of letting go. I think a lot of teachers struggle with just letting go and letting kids fail, right? Like it's okay if they fail a formative assessment, like it's fine. Not a big deal. Don't count it in whatever, I don't know, mark book, grade book, whatever you're using. You don't have to count it if they do fail that one summative or one formative, it's fine. But I have that conversation with teachers all the time. I know in my department, they'll often say, well, how do you do this? And are you okay with, kids just sitting there not doing anything for the period? Like, are you okay with that? I'm like, yeah, like if they literally want to sit there on their phone all period, that's a choice that they're making. Like they have, their agendas and schedules and time, like they know what they're supposed to be doing, but if that's their choice. And I'm okay with letting go and letting them make those decisions. Hopefully they would learn from kind of decisions that they are making and reflect on what they're doing, because I very much focus on developing their ability to reflect on their actions in the classroom and what they choose to do. But that's a big one for, I think, a lot of teachers, just letting it go. We often cite that song from Frozen. Is that what it is? The Disney movie? They'll often like sing that in our department office. Just let it go. That's our big one this year. Just don't worry about it. It will totally be fine. Sorry, group number 2. I think that was my group. That was us, right? Alexis and Hema, I think that was our group. Anyone want to share?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah. So when we discussed what assessment practices have students themselves participated in upholding that culture of power, we began the focus talking about feedback and how they're so quick to look past the feedback. And we know as educators, we love giving feedback to set them up for success moving forward. Here's what we're hoping you'll improve on, but they go right to that mark. And many of them, that's all they'll look at, and then they won't go any further than that mark and the grade, versus using that feedback to develop their skills. We talked too about how, in a perfect, beautiful world, you're allowing resubmissions, as often as possible. Okay, here's the feedback. You build that into your period. You're going to look at it, and now we want you to, re-engage. But we also, hear from staff that there's things that are built into our day that we're told we have to get through. And, as much as we want to do that resubmission, we also know that in our system, it's not always possible. But in a perfect world, you're literally scaffolding. We talked too about how, there's been opportunities throughout the pandemic as well for students to learn just for learning and to not have those grades attached. And yet the students were quick to check out, right, and not take advantage. And I think that's a fail in our society, where we haven't really built up the importance of education and the blessing of education, and how amazing that opportunity could have been. Where students were, oh, sorry, this isn't being graded, then, not worth my time, which is too bad.
Absolutely.
I covered everything.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Alexis. Group 3.
Corto, Maureen, and Stephanie.
Corto is going to share, but it looks like he's talking to somebody.
I'm good.
Oh,
I'm good. Sorry.
yeah, there we go. No worries.
This is what happens when I stay in the building. All right. So I'm going to be honest. During our conversation, we mostly identified problems and examples of teachers upholding the culture of power. All right, but things that we came up with were mostly centered on, I think, a Canadian World Studies vision of the textbooks, the narratives that teachers walk around with, teachers' personal experiences are reinforcing stereotypes, bigotry, specifically racism, but evidently not limited only to racism and intersecting with other forms of bigoted belief. A lot of research, at least that I have engaged with, demonstrates that when teachers attempt to teach intercultural topics, it ends up being focused on, like, everything is filtered through, like, the teacher decides this resource is good, the teacher decides this narrative is the one we're going to use, the teacher decides this is the level of complexity that students can deal with. That is the big one for me, the idea that, like, we have to decide what level of complexity is correct for students. I'm not sure how to resolve that one, but that is one that I've noticed a lot. I also am thinking a lot about how this is more a language issue. This is more a language arts issue, but whatever we call progress is not always necessarily progress in terms of assessment practices and how we talk about students. There are certainly aspects that I see in English, and certainly when I'm teaching French and I'm looking at French textbooks, that are not at all about student progress. They are about doing things that the adults decide are good, and that the students are not capable of making progress or self-assessing. They can't read the textbooks that I have to work with. I have nothing that my students can use that is in my classroom. And so that is also the culture of power, but like cloaked in, it's like a sausage roll, like cloaked in the language of empowerment for students, but like the students are not actually empowered at all. And of course, there's the issue that I have discussed with Megha at length about not teaching the full course, because what we have always done is prioritized. So for Canadian and World Studies, I think the obvious example is the history course ends in World War II. And there's a huge now like 60, 70-year gap that students never officially explore in a mandatory course. So some suggestions for solutions that I jotted down but did not arrive at collaboratively. The teacher-centered one is teacher does their own research. This is expensive, this is time-consuming, and it still centers the teacher. I mean, arguably in some contexts, teachers should have a lot of content knowledge in order to be flexible about assisting students. I think that's fair. But obviously, I think what the majority of us in this discipline would say is that we want more centering on student experiences and helping them learn about where they come from more, which is not to assume that they already know that, but to help them develop those critical thinking skills, source analysis, et cetera, that would help them express and explore more about where they come from. I'm also cheating because Megha and I have discussed learning maps before, so that's my suggestion. And my civics one is done, by the way. I did another draft today.
Can I just say hi to Cordo, and can I give him a big shout out? We actually met online. We met on Twitter, and then he's like, I want to try a learning map, and he's been using learning maps, and we're in 2 different boards. I love it. I believe he's in Toronto Catholic. So thank you, Cordo, for showing up today, for coming out. So awesome.
Cordo is one of our biggest fans, and I concur. Meeting on Twitter is the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you. That was awesome. That was great. Stephanie, did you want to add anything to that? You're on camera there.
Not really. I think he's very eloquent, and having a 4.5-month-old, my brain is not exactly up to par at the moment, but thank you for asking.
Awesome, thanks. Group 4.
So that's us. My partner, Diana, her microphone wasn't muting, so that I think you might have seen some of our chats before. But yeah, we kind of echoed a lot of what you just said, and we kind of focused on time and like the way that we are collecting the data for evaluation. So, I mean, ranging from barriers of schedules to class, test time limits, punitive sense of time, right? That if you don't meet the time, that's on you for failing to meet the time. And that really is something that we should shift. We gave some suggestions like different forms of feedback, flexible timing for assessments specifically. So making sure that you can still do evaluations, not all at the same time together, and understanding that that's not going to lead to cheating, right? Like there's different ways of getting around those problems that are the barriers to this flexible timing. Yeah, and just having like more student voice versus teacher authority. Again, you already spoke to that really well. Yeah, I think honestly, I think a lot of what we said, you said as well, and just that we as teachers need to recognize the power that we hold and how that manifests through our actions, through our planning, through our the way that we joke with students, you know, and the way that we, like you said, leave gaps in our history and just say, you don't need to know that because it's not as important as these, you know, major European conflicts. So yeah, it's all there. Thanks. Thank you so much for the time and for sharing all these great ideas. Diane, I don't know if you want to chat in if there's anything that we missed, but I felt pretty complete. Seems like we're good. Thank you.
Perfect. Last group.
So we didn't have enough people
Oh.
for 5 groups. We had to kind of move people around, but I did put this one suggestion in while we were in the main room, kind of, you know, making sure the technical things were running well. So this idea of, you know, how teachers are holding the power, and that thing that you said just before really struck me about teachers kind of filter everything through their own experience. So I was thinking about, well, this way of assessing worked for me, therefore it is successful, is, you know, like that's the kind of thinking I see all the time. And then one of the ways that I've seen this disrupted very successfully was sort of through it was a student human library for teachers at a PD day. So we had ELL language learners and students who are coming from many other cultures, kind of, you know, in a couple of them together, and then a couple of teachers kind of rotating around the room, listening to the students' experiences and responding to particular prompts, like what would make, you know, what really worked for you in your classroom and what would make things work better for you. And it was insanely eye-opening for the teachers that that were there, and just really disruptive of the power.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. So again, this chart is ours. Feel free to keep adding to it, modifying it, share resources through it. You know, it's for us to use. It's free to use it however you like. We've all co-created this. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to now move into kind of the codes of honor, which addresses a response to the codes of power. I am just going to see if I can make this super big again. So codes of honor, if anyone's familiar with Anne Patricia Fitzgerald, I do have her book here. I was obsessed with this book last year. I absolutely loved the book. She's excellent. She's like super active on Twitter. If you like, she will slide into your DMs and have like real life conversations with you. Like she's awesome. She's great. But in her book, something that very, very much resonated with me and I share all the time everywhere with everyone. She speaks to Del Pitt's codes of power. She kind of addresses them. So she's got something called codes of honor. So she got me thinking about the word honor when I first read the book. I know we've got like 10 minutes left almost. So real quick, I guess like before, I'd often hear the word honor being used usually when designing professional learning, right? So oftentimes teachers will say, you know, we got to honor the staff. We need to, you know, we got to work where staff is. Or admin will always say that we need to honor our teachers and, you know, start PD where they're at. However, we're going to do all of these things now. You know, the board gave us this. This is where we're going to start with. And really, no one is actually honored. no one. That the word just gets kind of lost with when it comes to PD. I've noticed, or the board will say, you know what, we're going to honor everyone's time, or we're going to, you know, we honor that everyone's different in terms of their learning and on their learning journey, but this is the standardized PL that you are now going to be getting, and everyone's going to be doing this PL. And I'll be honest with you, like I often do get frustrated with PL because, you know, like I've been doing all this work and now I now need to engage in PL where I'm already familiar with that content, but I can't go learn the other things that I really, really want to learn. So my learning was never actually honored in, in professional learning at all. And so then I think about like kids in the classroom and, what like kids coming in. I teach businesses often, it's all introductory courses. So we don't really have prerequisites. The kids don't really know, things from before. Some kids do. And so, and it's great when, kids know things from before. They know things because their parents own a business or, they have a job, and then they see how, organizations work to some extent. But it's interesting, like, I don't think kids get honored at all when it comes to, learning in the classroom. I know my students have been complaining a lot, oh, like math goes very fast. Sorry, Haim, I know you're a math teacher, but the kids will say like, Miss, I was learning this one thing, I don't know it, but then the teacher moves on. So really, is that kid being honored? So that word it just stuck with me in the way that like Fitzgerald uses it throughout her book. Are we actually really honoring the kids, or are we just saying that? So she's come up with her codes of honor as a response to what Delpa had come up with, like, here's what we should be doing in the classroom. So she starts off by saying that we need to recognize the power structures and recognize that they exist in the classroom. I'm kind of annoying about it in my classroom. So literally everything that I do, I will always type back to power, or I will always type back to, me trying to reduce the power structure in the classroom. So even today, like the kids wrote their own report card comments, and they, self-assessed their own midterm mark because midterms are coming up. And I said, well, you're going to do your own comment. And the one kid, there's always a kid who's like, well, isn't it your job to do comments? Isn't it your job to tell me what my next steps are? And I said right away, I'm like, well, I could tell you what your next steps are, but what if you have like other next steps that I don't even know about? And that's happened before. Like there's kids who, want to do all these other things, and, I might not even know that about them. And so like, I am doing this because I'm trying to get rid of this hierarchy that exists in terms of me telling you what to do. So I will constantly connect everything back to power structures. Some kids they're just annoyed by it at this point. And then other kids are very much like they get it. But I think we do need to talk about power structures in our classroom and tie our actions back to them if we are trying to move away from that structure. Acknowledge the purposeful intent and actions. Sorry, I'm just gonna move this little box. I've got like a floating box of faces here. Sorry, acknowledge the purposeful intent and actions of abolishing the limitations of the power structure. So with this one, again, like same idea, make an intentional effort or an active effort to ensure that kids aren't engaging, in this, be aware of what's happening, what's not happening in your classroom, or even like encourage the kids to question. And we talked about this in our chat. I'm okay with kids questioning me and literally questioning my existence. I'm fine with that. And I encourage them to do it. Like, go ask questions, go ask your, whatever teacher, your science teacher, why they're taking marks off when they probably shouldn't take marks off for lateness. And I think we do need to be purposeful about it. And we need to be intentional about that. Empower each member of the learning community to reflect on the culture of honor. So giving up that power. I know we talked about it's hard to let go, but make an effort to let go and let kids make decisions for themselves. Going into number 4, like invite learners into a position of authority, power, and decision making. If a student chooses to, sit there and play games for half a period, do a little bit of work, and then take maybe an extended break, let them for that one period. It might not hurt anybody, but have them reflect on that action. Like, what does doing that lead to? What does it mean? And then learners make decisions for themselves, which allow for the best possible outcome for themselves. I love this about what Fitzgerald says. So I will say this book does connect back to Universal Design for Learning. So it does follow that framework and that model. So if that model is applied, kids do make decisions for themselves. Like kids will, let them decide when they're going to be handing work in. I've been trying something new and a little crazy in my class this semester. I gave the kids course calendar and I said, here's a course calendar, put in whenever you want to do your summative. This is the midterm date, this is the final date, pop in your summative dates, and that's when you'll do your summative. So everyone's kind of on a different schedule in my course. It is a little messy right now and I haven't quite figured it entirely out yet. But again, like I'm giving them power and letting them make those decisions for themselves. I know we're like super tight on time. I've got one last thing before we go, just resources. I just want to share a whole bunch of resources. This should be open to everybody. Like you should be able to click through. If not, maybe send me an email and I'll do something fun and I'll be able to maybe figure out how to send it without, like I've got board permissions on everything, I think. but it should be available. So first thing I'm going to share is just a single point rubric. Real quick, I love a single point rubric. I don't give the kids a level 4. Like I don't define a level 4 for them. I realized I let them figure out what that level 4 is. So I say to them, reflect on the level 3 success criteria, and add your own level 4s. So in most cases, kids will have different level 4s, and that's totally okay, but they're coming up with it. And I only do this now because I realized I ran a PD a long time ago on project-based learning. I went to a school in Peel, to their business department, and they were looking at my assessment practices. And the one teacher said to me, and I still remember this, she goes, you don't teach them, so this was grade 9 business. And she said, you don't teach them conditional formatting in Google Sheets. And I'm like, no, I don't. And she's like, well, we teach them conditional formatting. So why are you like, that should be like a level 4 expectation. Why are you not teaching conditional formatting? I'm like, well, it's not in the curriculum. And so her whole thing, she used to work in industry, and her whole thing was, well, in industry, they need to know pivot tables, they need to know conditional formatting, they need to know all these cool fancy things with Google Sheets. And if you're not teaching them that like you're not really teaching them anything, is what her argument was. And that's when I realized, like, whoa, like your level 4 expectations are so different from what I think a level 4 is. And you literally made them up based off your experience, and I'm making mine up based off my experience. So maybe we should just let the kids make them up, like based off what they're learning. Because you and I, we both now have different level 4. So at that moment is when that's when I realized, like, all these teachers are coming up with different level 4 expectations, and it's entirely based off what they think the kids will need in the future. But then we also don't even know what's happening in the future. Like they're going to graduate in 4 years from from high school. Like I wouldn't even know what they're doing in university at that point. So that's when I realized that needs to change. So now I just let the kids fill in their level 4. So there's just a sample of that. So I let the kids come up with their own assessment tasks. So in terms of summatives, I don't give a summative task anymore. I just give them a rubric. I say, here's your rubric. Share this learning with me however you want. So I no longer have them like do a campaign or a post or a presentation. It's just go and share this. I have provided some guidance. So this link here, me and another teacher, Hillary McKay, who I used to work with at Harold Brathwaite, we came up with a whole list of different ways to share your learning. We asked the kids, and we just threw it onto a chart. We have these as printed posters now at my school, and they're up on the wall. I put it onto my course site. So if you really don't know how you want to share your learning, here are some options. Feel free, go nuts. And if not, like do whatever, like share it however you like. So for some of tasks, I'll get so many different assessment tasks. But I'm okay with that as well. I know I've spoken to teachers who are like, well, it's weird that you get different assignments. I'd rather just have all the kids do a presentation. I'd rather assess the same task because my mindset is on that one task. And then it's like, really, but it doesn't matter. So I let the kids kind of go nuts and create their own tasks. So they just get this single point rubric and share this however you want, whatever works for you. Sorry, I know we got to go. So I'm going to share this real quick, although I do need to take the permissions off of it because it's something that I'm working with a few folks in my school board. I have shared with them like that this will be shared, but it's still very much like you can see like notes here. It's very much a work in progress. We've been looking at personalized learning plans. I've been looking at personalized learning plans. Our modern learning department has been talking about them over the last couple of months. I'm at a place now where I want the kids to define the learning skills for themselves. So I realize in Growing Success, they give you sample behaviors for learning skills. Like there's no real definition of what everything is. It's just a sample behavior. So I have now asked the kids to define these for yourselves and tell me how will you demonstrate this behavior in our classroom? What should I be looking for? What will you be doing? How would I be able to see them? The kids kind of fill in the chart themselves, and then they go ahead and they assess their learning skills. So we have midterms coming up. The kids have been putting in their own learning skills, but they'd be tracking kind of what their skills are throughout the semester. So we did one at the start of the course, midterm is happening now, and we'll do one at the end. So that's something that we've kind of been working on. And then learning maps. I know Cordo mentioned this. I love a learning map. They work kind of in my board. They float around, I think. Some people are super into them. Some people hate them. But this literally lets the kids, this is a curriculum for our business class. And the kids work off of this however they like and whenever they like. There are no rules to this. So you could learn any overarching learning goal or any strand whenever you like in our semester. So the course does follow the inquiry model. So there's a lot of flexibility. It's very, very open. But they track their learning. So they learn things, they decide, well, do I know this? Do I not know this? Do I know it well enough? They highlight it, they tell me what the sources of learning are. And then here in the very last box, I link feedback to it once we do our summative assessment. They put whatever the summative task is and they self-assess themselves. So I only give feedback, I don't give a grade. They read the feedback, reflect on the feedback, and they then assess themselves and they give themselves a level. We have anchor marks or anchor skill. They will look at the feedback and then decide where they're at and they put the level in here. This is essentially kind of also like my grade book or mark book now, because all the levels are put in here. So they always know how they're doing. Like there's no reason for a kid not to know how they're doing in the course because they have this. And then this document I'll share with parents, guidance counselors if they need it, contact teachers, monitoring teachers, whoever needs to know how that student is doing, they have a copy of this. So everyone knows what's going on with that kid at all times, including the student. I think that's it. And so feel free to click around on those resources. They're there. If nothing works or if things don't work, let me know. I can make it very much available for you. And that's it. Thanks, guys. And I'm sorry, I went over time. I apologize.
Thank you, Megha, and everybody's sticking around. So I would like to thank you on behalf of OHASSTA for sharing these amazing resources. I think we'll wrap it up there, but if folks want to stick around for a few minutes and ask some more questions, I'll end the recording and then we can move along.